Recently, I started working on a different project and I ended up making a procedural city generator. And as you can see here, it generates a city in a grid where you have roads connecting and you have different buildings being spawned. So I made this whole city for a simple idea I had for a game, and it turns out I might not be actually using it. However, I do have this city generator here and I just wanted to showcase some of its features. This generator makes a city based on a wave function collapse algorithm, and what you can do here is you can change the size of the city and it will always generate a grid. So like if I go here, I make a smaller city, we have a 16 by 16 city, and I can press my generate button and every time we'll have a different render. And this is completely random. I have a few parameters where I can just change, and if I remove the buildings we can see what the city generation is like. And so we can see that we have different tiles depending on if we have a road or a simple empty plot. Now I can change the dimension as much as I want, and we can see that generation is random and it's always based on a grid. So at first you might think this is based on a grid algorithm, but actually it is just a wave function collapse. And you can see some small issues here, for example, where the road leads to a plot. It should probably have a better curve here or better way to show the sidewalk. And this city generator also makes chunks. So right now, if I go into my scene, I can see I have a bunch of different chunks generated. And if I deactivate them, we can see that part of it is being hidden. So I can choose to just hide multiple chunks. And same thing, this is a parameter in the generation. So I have chunk size of 4. I can change that to have 8, generate a city, and we can see I have a smaller number of chunks because the size is bigger. So if I deactivate one of them, we can see the chunk is indeed bigger, and when you deactivate it, you have less things showing up in the city. Right now for this generation, I'm using Kenny assets just to showcase the actual process. So like I mentioned, this generation is based on a wave function collapse. If you've never heard of that, this algorithm is pretty simple to explain, but a bit hard to implement. You start with one tile and you check the possibilities of what can spawn next to this tile. So let's say I start here. This is the first tile that spawned. What can spawn next to it is a road either going left or going right or going top, going at the bottom. Now the next tile, once it's generated, also does the same thing. This bottom road can spawn either another pedestrian crosswalk here, either on top or at the bottom, as you can see. On the sides, it will not generate any roads like this, but it can generate an empty plot. And on this empty plot, you have buildings. And if we go down a bit, let's see here, we can also see that, wait, no, never mind. If we go on a different tile, we can see that on the sides we have either an empty plot or pedestrian crossing. Actually, on the sides, for this one, on the sides you always have an empty plot, and the top and bottom is either a pedestrian crossing or more of that road. And for the horizontal one, the logic is pretty much the same, just the other way. Here's another one. So on the right side we either have a pedestrian crossing or we can have a normal road. This is what's happening on the left here. The same logic is happening on the left or right side, but the top and bottom will be empty plots. So this kind of idea, the use of this wave function collapse this way with this type of tiles, makes the city being a grid. And we can see here from my script, I have a grand total of 4 different tiles, either a default tile, which is where the buildings are spawned, or just the roads I mentioned. But the very good benefit of a wave function algorithm is that you can have a lot of different tiles. In this case, I'm using the word tiles, but just think of like any form of objects. And it's not only for 2D spawning you can use that, you can also use that to spawn 3D assets. So right now this is very simple, but I could add more types of roads and the parameters would just decide what is being spawned or not. And so this generation is completely random. Yeah, every time I press the generate city, I have a different outcome. It's never going to be the same. And this is just some work in progress. The drawback of using a wave function collapse is you can't really use a seed that will make the city always the same depending on seed 1, 2, 3 and so on to a very high number. So it's always going to be random. This is a bit of a drawback, but depending on what you are doing, what you're working on, this could be a good way to generate a grid or to generate any form of city or world. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about this city generation is that it can create grids ranging from like 2, let's see if I can find it, 2 being very small, to pretty much any number you want. However, the higher the number, the more calculations are required. I made sure it does not lead to a Stack Overflow error, because that was my main issue at first. And now I don't have this issue, but the bigger the city and the longer it takes to create it. So if I decide to choose, let's say 1000 as a dimension, I would have to wait quite some time before the city is generated. It would work, but you'd have to be extremely patient. So let's see, if I say 2, quite fast. If I say 4, quite fast too. If I go to 32, but let's say if I go into 64 this time, we can see it's taking a bit longer. This is because I'm recording, it makes it slower. 64 is not too slow, but if I went to go into 128 as a dimension, then it would start taking some time and so on. So that's pretty much it for this. This is still a work in progress. I just wanted to showcase it and talk about it. I feel like there's some interesting potential to use that. Still working on it, making sure. We'll see if I do another demonstration with my own assets and more diversity in the city.